It is Locked on Jazz for the 13th of July, a special afternoon edition back from Vegas, talking the 3 Jazz signings. We'll break them all down and take your questions on Facebook Live on this edition of Locked on Jazz. Pow! How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. Glad to be with you. A little different. Was in Vegas for for summer meetings and couldn't get a show out today. Had a nice breakfast with some of the Locked On Podcast Network hosts, and excited today to be able to catch up with you here and chat. So throw your questions to me. We've got till 5:05, and then I'm jumping on with Spence on his show. So let's delve right into it. The Jazz have added 3 members to their roster. The first move came down yesterday. Thabo Sefolosha signed. The second, Jonas Jerebko or Giannis Jerebko. I'm not actually sure. I probably need to have that right. And then Ekpe Udoh added as well today. Kind of a hidden little move there by Dennis Lindsey on trying to grab a former highly sought of player. So Jonas Jerebko. It's Jonas Jerebko is the pronunciation according to Basketball Reference. These are 3 solid players. Big picture, what the Jazz have done here is they've given themselves 240 minutes of a roster, which I don't think a lot of teams have, frankly. And so there's no question that the Jazz are lacking some scoring, first to 80 wins. I don't know how we're going to score entirely. The system hopefully is going to yield a lot of it, and we can talk about that. But what the Jazz have done here is there were gaps in that roster. I mean, Joe Ingles is a 24, 25-minute-a-night player, and there wasn't a backup 3 on the roster unless you were playing around with Joe Johnson. So now you have Thabo Sefolosha being able to step in there and play those minutes, and he is one of the best defensive players. Jerebko adds a little 4 depth, a little 5 depth, maybe. So, like with Joe Johnson, maybe a little 3 depth, like Joe can slide to 3, just have roster versatility. And then Ekpe Udoh is really a 5, and if Tony Bradley's not entirely ready and Joel Bolomboy's not entirely healthy or not developing, then that's what you have. For those of you that are new to the program, because it's 4:30 in the afternoon, you're jumping on. We're getting many more people on Facebook Live than we usually do. I'm learning we probably should do this in the afternoon. This is our daily podcast. It's up for you. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on, you can tell Alexa, play Locked on Jazz. Kind of cool. And you can subscribe on your Android or on iTunes. We do it every day for you, Monday through Friday. We'll slow down a little bit in the off season. Today's edition is brought to you by the Shamrock Auto Group. The Shamrock Auto Group does really, they're out in Pleasant Grove. They do great work for everyone. And I think that if you're interested in buying a car, you should look into this. Most of their cars are 6 to 12 months old, 5 to 20,000 miles, Suburbans, Yukons, big SUVs. They're going to give you out-the-door pricing in 5 minutes. They're going to test drive by yourself. You're going to buying experience in under an hour. I mean, when you go look at what Rob Taylor, not Rob Thomas, Rob Taylor has done with Shamrock Auto Group and his engineer, and you go look at their Google reviews, it's clear everyone is having a just fabulous experience. No pressure buying. And if you don't have, people come from all around the country, including out of state, to use Shamrock Auto Group. They go find the car you might want. So they bring you the Facebook Live edition. You can visit their website at shamrockautogroup.com or call 801-319-2250. That's 801-319-2250. They really believe that they are doing things differently. No pressure is number one, and you can see, if you read the Google reviews from everyone, that they really love it. 50% of their customers are return customers. I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a bit. All right, so let me break down the 3 players that we have here. Thabo Sefolosha. Thabo Sefolosha is from Switzerland, 33 years old in May, so he's definitely one of the premier wing defenders in the NBA. Tough. He'll have to guard Durant. He'll have to guard LeBron. You just can't ask Joe Ingles to guard those guys for 30 minutes a night. So Joe and Sefolosha will combine on that. Thabo is a solid shooter, not a great shooter. He's 35%. That's league average. He has been predominantly a corner three shooter for almost his entire career. He is not a great above the break shooter. He's a good cutter. Rubio and he may be able to find some things there. He's kind of known as a really good off-ball cutter. He was a top 5 real plus-minus defensive player last season in the NBA. So that's the breakdown on him. He's averaged for the last few years 25, 24, 26 minutes a game, 27. So he fills that small forward gap for the Jazz so that they now have 40 minutes. Jonas Jerebko is 30 years old, originally a second-round draft pick. Jonas, sorry. He tore his Achilles tendon in his second year out of Detroit. It's taken him a while to come back. He's another solid shooter, but here's what's interesting about him. At 6'10", he plays both the 4 and the 5. He's a predominantly above-the-break three-point shooter. That's a very, very big deal for the Jazz to have shooters that are above-the-break shooters. That's what they were hoping to get out of Boris Diaw. He just didn't shoot well last year. Jerebko does not handle it a great deal, but he's a decent passer. He's not a dribble guy. He's really a shooter. He took nearly 50% of his shots from three last year. He can switch adequately defensively. He fell out of favor a little bit in Boston, but he's a 15 to 18. Last year he played 78 games in Boston, playing 16 minutes a night. That's just another roster filler, right? That's important. It could be the backup 5. He could play a little 4, depending what's going on with Joe. This is what they did yesterday. They filled out the roster in its entirety. The final one is Ekpe Udoh. He was originally the 6th pick of the draft, which turned out to not be a very good pick. When he came into the league, he went to Baylor, transferred to Michigan. So one of these older guys, gets quoted a lot. He played in Golden State for 2 years. Then he went to Milwaukee for 3 years. It never clicked. He finished his final year in LA. He then went to Turkey, where he became kind of a legend, became the EuroLeague Final Four MVP, took his team to the final game. He's really a rim-protecting role big. What he's not is a post-up guy. So if you kind of think back of when he came in the league at 2010, 2011, he was a big who didn't post up a great deal, didn't have any offensive skills, didn't shoot well, just 44%, and so he kind of ended up she ended up kind of being sorry, I just got a text. He ended up kind of being a little out of place and not finding a groove. A lot of the things that were negatives about him have left, right? So now if you're just a rim-protecting roller, defensive-minded guy, and that might be okay. That might match us for a center. I don't think he's going to be great. He's gotten better. He got a bigger opportunity in Europe to play. He's a good passer. His doesn't look like it from his numbers, but everybody I just talked to in Europe talks about him being a good passer, and that will really match to what we're trying to do. It's one of the main reasons the Jazz wanted him was because he is a good passer, and so they're very pleased in that regard. He's 30. All of these guys are on 2-year contracts. I think all of them have a team option. So I'm not sure. I think all of them are 1-year contracts with a team option. I haven't heard that definitively, but that's my understanding. So that would be big. The Jazz have, in fact, waived Boris Diaw to get out from under that $7 million of his contract. They were unable to trade that deal. So that's where we sit. Let me see if I can bust a bunch of questions out. We've got the most people we've ever had listen to Facebook Live, which tells me we should be doing it in the afternoon while you're at work and then not really working. Smile. So let's see. We got about 10 minutes here to go through some questions. Which of the recent signings are you most excited about? I think Sefolosha was a necessity. We just didn't have 48 minutes of small forward minutes. We were short. The roster didn't have 240 minutes in it. By the way, 240, if I'm doing this correct, is 48 times 5. That's 48 minutes at each position. We just didn't have that. So Sefolosha, I think, adds to this defensive kind of lineup that we have. I think Exum, Mitchell, Hood, and Rubio can fill those 96 minutes. Ingles, Cephalosha, maybe Joe Johnson can fill those 96 minutes or 48 minutes. Power forward, Favors, Jerebko, Johnson can fill those 48 minutes. Gobert, Jerebko, if you want to go smaller. Udo, neither of those guys are great rebounders. Jerebko can spread it. Udo can probably defend the rim better. So those can call those, and Bradley, who I think's had a good summer league, can fill those 48 minutes. Neto is a great security blanket on the backside of those guards as your fifth guard and can cover that. And so the roster's pretty much full, and I think they've covered enough things. Pending a trade, this is our likelihood, our roster going to training camp. We're going to be able to defend. We are going to have a hard time scoring unless the system can get it going. I was texting with Quinn the other day. He's like, coach to the blackboard to see what we can do to create some offense, and I think that's certainly the case. All right. Let's see. We're going to miss Boris. Yes, he's the best. Is there still a scenario where the Jazz make a move for a bigger piece, or would you say you line up is more set in stone? I think there's still a chance to possibly make some moves, but I also think that a lot of the guys that we would move at this point are at a pretty low value. And so let's see if I didn't mention Alec Burks in that. Let's see if Alec Burks can get healthy. Let's see how Derek Favors looks. Our defensive rating was a 96.5 with Favors and Gobert on the floor last year. It's hard to score, but maybe we're going to just be so good defensively that we can run it that way. Excited for Jonas. I need to watch him more. I liked him a lot when he was at Detroit and they tore the Achilles, and I've always thought he was a pretty good player, like a nice player. I'd have to watch him more to really understand him. How are we going? Quinn's going to become a marvel. Rodney Hood's going to be the primary option. We're going to move the ball. We're going to create opportunities. We're going to use probably a lot of the clock, and we're going to have to shoot a lot of threes in a short possession game so that if we hit them, and then we're going to hopefully take advantage of those rare fast break opportunities and really execute on them. Will the Jazz play a faster pace this year to take advantage of Rubio's transition game? I would hope so, but sometimes in the half-court game, if you're playing a faster game, it's because you can just beat somebody off the bounce. Other than Donovan, we don't really have anybody who can beat you off the dribble. So we're going to have to create things by movement once we get into half-court. So maybe we can add a little bit more score early, but we're certainly going to be a score-late team. How do you think we will do this season with our picks and team? I don't understand the question. I'm most excited about Tabo. I would agree. I got to go check the pronunciation guide on that again. How am I supposed to be saying this? Tabo. Okay. I was doing it right. How do you think the rule changes removing 3 timeouts in the game and moving the trade deadline will affect the Jazz? Trade deadline is actually a collective bargaining agreement because they start the season early, so they kind of had to, and then they didn't want in the trade. The timeouts is fascinating. The timeouts is going to change the game. It's going to change what kind of players you want. It's going to change. The timeouts now are at the under 7 and the under 3. You're going to go longer times. You're going to have to probably be in better physical condition. I think the altitude, it's to our advantage. Longer stretches are to our advantage. I think we're going to give people a hard time early in the first and early in the third could be a real stretch time for us. And frankly, early in the second, early in the fourth. I mean, that's going to be more often than not. I'm going to guess that first whistle doesn't come till after the 6-minute mark. And so that's going to be a real time where you put the pressure on people. I mean, we might really come out and try to pick up defensively and do some things differently early in games. You're going to need players that don't have to have coaching all the time with timeouts late in games. And so I think that's really going to be interesting as well. So I love this change. I think it's good for the game, but it's a dramatic change. I'll tell you as a broadcaster, it's a huge change. It's really a big deal in the league. They're eliminating 2 timeouts, no more 20s. If you don't use the mandatories are a little longer. If you don't use a mandatory, there's 8 mandatory timeouts, then everything else is just what's called a 1-minute timeout. And you have a certain amount, and you either use them or you don't, and you can use them in the first half. Quinn Snyder could call timeout at the 11:59 mark and the 11:58 mark of the first quarter, and there could be no timeouts left for the rest of the quarter unless the other team uses one of theirs. You'll also see teams use theirs late because they can only carry 2 into the final 3 minutes, I believe, of the game. All right, let's continue. Are we going to rely on Hood and hope he can produce scoring? Yes, we are going to do that. Hopefully Rodney gets his strength up and gets going. most teams are top 5 in the league defensively, make the playoffs. The exception was the Milwaukee Bucks, who were 30th in the league offensively. It's hard to be really good defensively if you're not good offensively. So that's going to be the challenge. Something brewing with all the 2-year deals. I actually, as I said, I don't know for a fact because I haven't been announced. I suspect most of these are 1-year deals with a team option to the second year. And I haven't heard any of that. I've been kind of in and out in Vegas. But let's keep an eye on that. I would suspect that when that gets revealed that we'll find out a little bit in that regard to what those deals are. What does the Nike contract start? I got it. This is the beginning of it right here. The Nike contract start. This is a shirt we were given at the broadcast meetings by Nike, by Phil Knight, who was there to speak to us. This is the beginning of the Nike deal. Nice shirt. Thank you. The guys who signed fit are philosophically guard the hell out of you and be a pest. Yes, absolutely. Udo is supposed to be a great rim defender when he first came out of Michigan. And he's a really great guy. I posted on the Locked On Jazz Medium account, which if you can get the Medium app, then you just get it on your phone. It's kind of why I'm using that, by the way, is so that you can get Locked On Jazz just on your phone instead of having to go to a web-based to get it. And sorry, it was just a different thought that went through my head, so I got like 2 minutes. And so it has a really cool article from the New York Times. I have a question for you guys. One of the big things there was we talked about social networking. I don't mean this arrogantly. I'm way ahead of the game of every other broadcaster in the NBA. I do more than everyone else, but I don't know what to do exactly. And I'm trying to figure out how to use Instagram Live, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, Snapchat, and what the best things for you guys are. Do you want Quinn Snyder's, press conferences or just his media sessions? Do you want player media sessions? Do you just want to see players? And what formats? YouTube videos, all of those kind of things. This should be available for you on YouTube now, not this video, but the podcast. So, I'd love some guidance from you guys who use this stuff, who are younger than an old guy like me who's beginning to have gray hair, who has to start using readers all in one summer. It just sucks. Let me know on that. All right, I'm done when the phone rings. Hopefully Spence is running late. Heard a few rumors of a potential big shakeup on the – Brian Windhorst said this at the end of a podcast. Let's see if he's right. And let's start keeping track of if he's ever right involving the Jazz. And I think it's interesting on Brian Windhorst because I remember Brian Windhorst doing a podcast this year talking about how a terrible move it would be for the Utah Jazz if they signed Gordon Hayward to a max deal. Remember that whole thing? Does anybody else remember that? I haven't heard. So someone feel free to tweet Windhorst on how he feels about Boston giving Gordon Hayward a max deal, since he did an entire podcast on what a crappy deal it would be by the Jazz if they gave Hayward a max deal. I haven't heard a little peep out of anyone about Boston doing it. Just a little bitter. Just keeping track. That's a good place to end. It's a great place to end today's Facebook Live. All right, today's show was brought to you by Shamrock Auto Group. Really appreciate them. Go check out the reviews that they have on Google and everywhere else, and you'll find out what an incredible company they are. If you're looking to buy a truck, Shamrock Auto Group is the answer for you. They do fabulous work. They get you the cars you need. They have 79 Google reviews, and you will see that they are all fabulous. They're 5 of 5 on Cars.com. That's because that's what Rob has built there. You can call Rob directly, or you can just call Shamrock Auto Group if you like. Give them a call, 801-361-9796. That's 801-361-9796. Off to do Spence Checkett Show. See ya.